friends, what's going on? It's Ultimus, and today we are talking about Arms Warriors. Now, not the Arms Warrior artifact weapon tree that we were hoping for, though I'm assuming and hoping soon we will get that out and about on the Legion Alpha and Beta. Still holding out as far as my speculations as to why we don't have access to that yet. Again, I got a couple ideas and theories behind it, but that's neither here nor there at the moment. But what we can talk about is over the past week, they've updated some of the stuff that's coming to Arms Warriors in the abilities and talents and PvP talent section. So we're going to go through, just like we've been doing with our Frost Death Knights and Enhancement Shamans, and take a look at our abilities, our talents, and then our PvP tree. So let's jump right in. Still maintaining parry, slam, charge, mortal strike, execute, seasoned soldier. Damage does increase 200%. Have our sky jump. Okay, so everything looks pretty much the same as what we have in our arms tree. So we're gonna go ahead and jump right over there. Still holding on to as far as everything you're gonna have across the board for all specs of war. You're gonna have access to block, parry, charge, your sky jump to the halls of valor, headlong rush, which is very interesting. Haste reduces the global cooldown and the cooldowns of Arms and Mortal Strike and Thunderclap, Fury, Bloodthirst, and Protection, Shield Slam, and Thunderclap. Have access to Heroic Throw as well, Pummel, and Heroic Leap. Headlong Rush is an interesting one to me because stacking Haste as an Arms Warrior sounds extremely interesting. So I wonder if a Haste Mastery build would be in our foreseeable future. Who knows? I mean, Crit and Mastery has been pretty much the go-to for Arms Warriors for a while now, so I'd be curious to see if we could stack enough haste to make that actually worth it to compete with the amount of mastery that we're going to get going into our mastery. So take a look at that and see when we actually get our hands on gameplay. Now, abilities that are specific to Arms are going to include Slam. It's no longer a talent. And there's no longer, it's not a cast time still, so it's still instant, 15 rage. And it causes 225% physical damage. I'm imagining that's of your weapon damage. So, again, seems a bit strong, but it's kind of nice having a good, solid single target ability, because right now Slam is crap. No one ever takes it in the talent tree. It's just, as much as I miss it as an ability, great. It's just not worth taking over sudden death. There's just no way. Mortal Strike, the Arms Warrior staple, is cost of 20 rage, instant cast, with a 6-second recharge, and it has 1 charge on it. It's a vicious strike that deals 350% physical damage and reduces the effectiveness of healing on the target for 10 seconds. Execute, still pretty much the same. Attempt to finish off the foe, causing 200% physical damage to the target and consuming up to 30 additional rage to deal up to 405% additional damage. Only usable on enemies that have less than 20% health. Seasoned Soldier, while using two-handed weapons, all damage decreased by 10%. We still have Victory Rush, which attacks the target and heals you for 30% of your maximum health. And it can be used 20 seconds after you kill an enemy. That's a pretty wide window, isn't it? Like 10 seconds now currently? 20 seems long. I mean, I'm okay with that. Definitely okay with the buff to that window of opportunity there, which is nice considering we don't have enraged regeneration anymore. And that's a big deal. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that as we get a little bit farther into this. Colossus Smash, still instant, 45-second cooldown. It smashes the enemy's armor, dealing 225% physical damage and increasing damage you deal to them by 20% for 6 seconds. So still kind of our big damage window, more or less. Like, you want to save your rage or your mortal strike. Basically, you want to make sure you have a mortal strike to land in those 6 seconds for sure. If you don't, you're going to miss a great opportunity for a lot of damage. So pretty much the same there. Tactician Slam, Whirlwind, and Execute have a 20% chance per target hit to reset the cooldown on Colossus Smash. So that alone is a reason to use Whirlwind, especially in a group of a lot of enemies rather than just using Cleave or anything else. Just simply using Whirlwind is going to help a lot. Again, because of more enemies, so more chance, 20% chance. It's going to, good stuff. Whirlwind, instant cast, 30 rage, Whirlwind of Steel that attacks all enemies within 8 yards, causing 3 times 80% physical damage to each enemy. Interesting, if I'm reading that right. Cleave is a 10 rage, 6-second cooldown instant cast, a sweeping attack that strikes all enemies in front of you for 75% physical damage. For each target up to 5 hit, your next Whirlwind will deal 20% more damage. So you can basically increase the damage of your Whirlwind by 100% if you hit 5 enough enemies. And what's interesting about Cleave, though, now is it's not just limited to 2 targets, because Cleave used to function to where it only hit 2 targets. Now it says a sweeping strike that attacks all enemies in front of you for 75% physical damage, which is kind of cool. So you're getting the option of Whirlwind or Cleave, which is very, very interesting to me. It's interesting that Cleave is not as strong as Whirlwind. This doesn't seem like it is. Unless I'm completely reading that Whirlwind damage percentage wrong. But I mean, you want to use Cleave because you want that damage buff to Whirlwind. So there's that. But it's kind of cool to see Cleave back, which I'm pretty happy about. Hamstring, 10 rage, 1 second cooldown. Maims the enemy for 5% physical damage, reducing movement speed by 50% for 15 seconds. Still getting access to defensive stance for now. I could see them almost removing defensive stance, though. I don't want them to, but I could see them doing it. And that kind of terrifies me, just because they're trying to get into the whole, again, class fantasy bit, which I get, and I'm okay with, but makes me nervous knowing that they're getting kind of prune happy with some of these abilities. Like, some of them are good to remove and move to other specs, and others are just like, well, I'm not so sure that was a smart move, so we'll have to wait and see on that one. But hopefully defensive stance is here to stay. Even if it doesn't reduce damage done taken by 25%, we still sit at 20%. It's still fine. Like, it would suck, but at least we'd still have it. Berserker Rage. I thought Berserker Rage was Fury only. Am I wrong? Like, I don't understand. I could have swore Berserker Rage was Fury only. I don't know. You go Berserk, removing and granting immunity to Fear, Sap, and Incapacitate effects for 6 seconds. This is the one that interests me a lot. Battle Cry. It's a 1 minute cooldown. You let loose a Battle Cry, granting your special attacks an additional 100% chance to critically strike for 5 seconds. So, my thoughts are, how important is crit going to be as a stat to stack on your warrior if every minute you're going to have this? Now, obviously, a 5-second window isn't a lot, but you can do a good amount of damage in 5 seconds if you time your cooldowns right and you'd work around the enemy cooldowns a lot. And so if you can guarantee crits, like, would you almost want to go Haste Mastery build then, so you can, since Haste reduces the global cooldown of your abilities and the cooldowns of the specific ones? Or is Crit Mastery still going to be the go-to? Now, I know we're going to have less control over what stats we stack from what I've been able to pick up on in Legion, which is concerning. But either way, the ability itself sounds cool, simply for the fact that it gives us on-demand burst, more or less, or a little bit more control of our burst and damage as warriors rather than waiting for RNG to proc us. I don't know if it's the best mechanic to solve the issue. Maybe it's just lazy class design, I don't know, but having a little bit more control over at least every minute is nice, rather than hoping everything procs and lines up right. Whereas if I can get my Colossus Smash off, pop my Battle Cry, then I've got a good window there for, you know, a Mortal Strike, a Blade Storm, or a couple overpowers if I choose to take the talent, slams, all that stuff like that, or a well-timed Whirlwind that's got the buff from Cleave. So there's a lot of possibilities with Battle Cry. I just hope this doesn't equate, or this isn't their only answer to the RNG dependency that is Arms Warriors for sure. I would like to see a little more thought go into it. Our mastery is Colossal Might. Increases the damage of your Colossus Smash by 20% and causes it to increase the damage you deal to the target by an additional 20%. So that's what's interesting to me too, is the fact that our mastery is so good as Arms Warriors that it's going to increase the damage that's done and the damage that they take while that Colossus Smash debuff is in there. So that's what is very intriguing to me, was when considering stats and what we're going to be stacking come Legion. And then lastly, Commanding Shout has been completely reworked. It's on a 3-minute cooldown now, and you let loose a Battle Cry, granting all party or raid members within 30 yards 15% increase to maximum health for 10 seconds. After this effect expires, the health is lost. So it functions very similar to Rallying Cry, which now Rallying Cry is a Prot Warrior exclusive, but they're giving us a different functioning Commanding Shout. So that in of itself is interesting. How some of these abilities are being reworked I find interesting. Some of the stuff they've changed, added, taken away, all of that. as a warrior. Some of it's interesting, some of it's concerning. My biggest concern for sure is how battle cry is going to function. If again this is going to be the only answer we're getting to on-demand damage or RNG damage. Curious about the tuning of some of these abilities. Cleave and Whirlwind interest me. I want to know if Cleave is on the global cooldown or if it's on the same cooldown as Heroic Strike. So if it is, could I macro it into Whirlwind or other abilities like that so I can get that Cleave bonus up there as well? Because it is only 10 rage, which isn't a lot. So it's kind of nice. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. Another thing that concerns me about Arms Warriors and the direction we're going, and it puts me right on that like fine line, I think, of concerned and curious, is our lack of defensives, including enraged regen, which again I mentioned before that we talk about, so here we are. But enraged regeneration, getting rid of that, I can understand because they don't want all classes just having self-heals, which is fine. It never really made sense anyways, more or less, as an ability. It was cool and it was nice to have, but it didn't really make sense. Victory Rush being our only really reliable self-heal, and even that's a 50-50 because as a warrior I feel like you get your kills stolen a lot. And I feel like it's weird in an arena match, like asking your teammates, like, let me land all the kills. Like puts you in a weird spot. But self-heals aside or not, like there's really no other defensives unless we take Die by the Sword. I mean, we have Commanding Shout, but that's on a 3-minute cooldown, and you really want to save that for not just you. So, I mean, unless our parry is dang good, we really don't have a whole lot of defensives, which concerns me because it's like I don't want to be in a position where I can't play or do anything without a healer. And I know in threes you're going to bring a healer anyway, so it's a very different game. And I know PvP is balanced around 3v3s anyway, so I feel like I have to kind of just be okay with this to a degree. But even if I'm doing twos or capping points in twos, it's like as an arms warrior, unless I'm playing with an enhancement shaman or a hunter that really knows how to trap or some type of hybrid class, I feel like I have to play Fury just to keep myself alive. And even then, having the hybrid class is very, very helpful because it's tricky to keep yourself alive as a warrior. Because, I mean, when you swap over to defensive stance, you're fine, but then you really lose a lot of your big damage because you don't have Colossus Smash. And it just puts you in a weird place as a warrior, because then you're like, well, if I'm getting trained the entire game, I literally can't do a thing. And eventually you're going to die because you have no defensives, no heals. Like, you have the 2 or 3. So that's definitely concerning, but I'm not at a point with it where I'm going to throw up my hands and say, Blizzard is messing this game up, they're ruining my class, it's all going to hell in a hatbasket. It's just, I'm not going to panic about it. I'm going to probably, and by probably, I will, but I'll patiently wait and see what direction they're taking it in before I freak out or anything like that. And even when everything gets final, if it's not what I like, I'm probably not going to freak out, and I'll probably still play my warrior anyways. I'll just probably give Blizzard some feedback, which I think is why I'm hoping to get into beta, because I want to be a responsible beta tester and actually give Blizzard feedback on some of this stuff. So, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm definitely curious to see what this looks like when it all gets flushed out, and I'm curious to get my hands on it and just see what a lot of this feels like, what the PV feels like. And again, as long as it's a fluid, fresh spec and not clunky, then there's that, I suppose. But lack of defensives definitely scares me, unless our whole goal is to like kill the target in 6 seconds and then hope for the best. Like, either you kill him in 6 seconds or you're dead in 6 seconds. That's just the way it is. It's the world's most savage game of cat and mouse ever. Warrior life. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at talent. In our first tier at level 15, we're having to choose between Shockwave, Stormbolt, and Sweeping Strikes. So Shockwave sends a wave force in a frontal cone, causing 187.5% of attack power damage for arms warriors. And same thing for Fury and Prot. Damage and stunning all enemies within 10 yards for 4 seconds, and the cooldown is reduced by 20 seconds if it strikes at least 3 targets. So effectively, same exact functionality. Same exact thing for Stormbolt that we have on live now is going to be rolling into Legion. 90% damage, stunning for 4 seconds, but it deals 4 times that amount, or the exact words are quadruple damage to targets that are permanently immune to stuns. I still wish we'd get a mechanic that, if you can time it well on Death Knights that are, rocking Icebound Fortitude or whatever, make themselves immune to stuns. That would be nice. Actually, Icebound Fortitude I think only prevents you from being like sapped, and maybe it is stuns. Who knows? I can't remember off the top of my head. That's what I get for not maining a Death Knight and trying to quote their skills. But it'd be kind of cool if there was like a little more functionality for that in PvP rather than just the stun. Though it is nice to secure that stun rather than trying to wait and get the shockwave for the 3 people, because sometimes that's not always ideal. Sweeping strikes has been changed a little bit. Mortal Strike and Execute hit a second nearby target. So it's exclusively Mortal Strike and Execute now, not any of your other attacks. So it wouldn't work with Overpower, auto attacks, anything like that. So definitely some change in functionality there, which is interesting considering Whirlwind and Cleave function pretty much the same way. So they're pretty much taking the functionality of Sweeping Strikes and almost applied it to Cleave more or less, is what it feels like. I don't see Sweeping Strikes really being taken above the stuns, especially in a PvP situation. The Shockwave or the Stormbolt is just too good. They're too reliable of a cooldown on such a short cooldown for you to stay competitive as a warrior. I think if we lost those, we really wouldn't have much place in PvP at all. So we'll take Shockwave there just for the heck of it, because we will probably alternate between Stormbolt and Shockwave. In our level 30 tier, we have Impending Victory. Your Slam has a 40% chance to restore 10% of your health, which isn't all that exciting. Heroic Leap's cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds, and it also increases your run speed by 70% for 3 seconds. And then Die by the Sword increases your parry chance by 100% and reduces the damage taken by 30% for 8 seconds. I can tell you as of right now, Die by the Sword is going to be the go-to one. Just looking at the other 2 choices, Bounding Stride isn't bad, but compared to Die by the Sword, it just really can't compete. Unless you're trying to keep that like Mad Kiting Warrior, Speedy Gonzalez, like Dream Alive, I just don't see it being able to compete with Die by the Sword. 2-minute cooldown, 30% damage reduction flat out, and then parry chance increased by 100% for 8 seconds. 8 seconds is a dang long time. I mean, you can effectively shut down a good 50% to 90% of a class's burst in those 8 seconds, because none of them last all that long. 45 tiers, Dauntless. Your abilities cost 20% less rage, which is actually kind of nice. Overpower is back. They heard our cries and decided to make it a talent, which I don't know how happy I am about that, but the fact that it's there is a nice option. It's an instant ability, instantly overpower the enemy, causing 375% physical damage. Wow, that's a lot. Cannot be blocked, dodged, or parried. Overpower has a 60% increased chance to be a critical strike. Your attacks have a chance to activate Overpower. So it's like a mixed combination of how Overpower used to work back in the day and new Overpower. It's not activated on dodges or parries only, but it's that your attacks have a chance to activate Overpower. Then you get a charge of Overpower. I'm curious how many charges you're going to be able to get, if any at all, or if it just activates it. Like, it's like it activates it and you have to use it when it's activated, and that's it. But 375% weapon damage or physical damage, that's a big number. That's not a small number for sure. And then making us choose between all the Dauntless, Overpower, and Avatar. 1.5 minute cooldown. Transform into a Colossus for 20 seconds, dealing 20% increased damage and removing all roots and snares. We'll take Overpower right now in this build just on principle. We want to make sure it knows it's welcome back. Don't want it to feel like lonely or nothing. That'd be awkward. In our level 60 tier, we have Second Wind, which still sucks. You gain 6% health every 1 second when you haven't taken damage in the last 5 seconds. That's not going to happen in a PvP situation. There's no way. Between the amount of pets on the field, dot damage, all that stuff like that, there's just no way. You mean, you might get out of combat for a little bit, but as a warrior, that's not where you want to be anyways. You don't want to be out of combat. Because once you're out of combat, you stop generating rage, which means you have no attacks. Bad place to be. So I just don't see anybody taking Second Wind. The only time Second Wind is actually somewhat useful is in a PvE environment where maybe you're soloing old raids. But even this, it just completely loses its functionality because you're not going to be out of combat during that. Double Time increases the maximum number of charges. Intercept and charge by 1. Interesting. Because that's right, because Prot only has intercept, it doesn't have charge, which makes more sense. And then Opposing Roar, Commanding Shout also increases Leech by 20%. Interesting. I feel like we already saw how this worked out with the Glyph of Rallying Cry, right? When your Rallying Cry is active, you have 20% Leech, and nobody uses it. Like, it's not being used. It's not effective. I mean, looking at this tier right here, the only one I can see that's actually decent and worth taking is Double Time. Getting 2 charges. I can't see the rest of them actually being effective in PvP at least. Let's look at our 75 tier with Fervor of Battle. Cleave and Whirlwind generate 2 rage for each target that they hit. Rend is now a talent. wound the target, causing 750% of attack power bleed damage over 15 seconds. Wow. 750%? That's massive. Like, it makes sense that it would be a nice, big, hefty damage over time effect, but I wasn't expecting it to be that high. I mean, maybe it's that high because they want to incentivize taking it as a talent when you're competing with Bladestorm, but I mean, who knows? With Bladestorm, it functions pretty much the same way. 1 minute cooldown, become an unstoppable storm of destructive force, striking all targets within 8 yards. Fury, it's 240% physical damage with main and offhand. Arms is 160% physical damage. You do that all for every 1 second for 6 seconds. You're immune to movement and parrying loss of control effects, but can only use taunt and other defensive abilities. And then with arms, it says channeling Bladestorm does not prevent avoiding attacks. So you can still dodge crap. But I mean, between Rend or Bladestorm, I think my default's still going to be Bladestorm just because of the defensive and offensive utility. But depending on what the damage looks like on Rend, that's kind of tempting because 750% of attack power. That's crazy. In our level 90 tier, we have the return of Heroic Strike. It's a 1.5 second cooldown, 15 rage, and heroically increase the damage of your next mortal strike. Oh, causing it to deal attack power times additional damage stacks up to 3. Interesting. That's okay. See, this is how Heroic Strike used to function. And that it charged up your next attack that you dropped. So you used Heroic Strike, and then your next attack dealt more damage. I'm talking, this is vanilla WoW. So it's going to buff up Mortal, which makes sense why the percentage on Mortal Strike is a little bit lower. I mean, 350% isn't a small number for sure, but just like comparatively speaking, to, I guess, to what I expected it to be. So Heroic Strike... heroically, not just, normally, but heroically, increases the damage of your next mortal strike, causing it to deal additional damage, and it stacks up to 3 times. It's also not on the global cooldown. That's kind of cool. That makes it sound a lot more appealing than I originally did. Mortal Combo. Mortal Strike has 2 charges. Oh. That's interesting. I feel like I would spam both of those so hard because I'm like usually when I'm using Mortal Strike I'm spamming that button, so it would just be like, which I mean might not be a bad idea when you're trying to get big damage in your Colossus smash window. I don't know. Titanic Might increases the duration of Colossus smash by 200% but halves its effectiveness. So they'd only take 10% additional damage. But if you stack enough mastery, you'd be able to get enough of that debuff on there. See, that's what's interesting to me as mastery. That's why I'm wondering about our stat stacking. Like, what is our priority going to be? Because I'm already assuming mastery, because mastery is our big stat, stack right now. But with haste affecting warriors like it's going to now, that might be a tempting build. And where's crit going to sit at with all this? There's a lot to be said and a lot going on with warriors here. A lot more than I thought. I'm not going to lie. I'm actually a little bit happy and impressed with how much is going into the possibility of change for warriors. Because, I mean, effectively, if you could get your Colossus Smash damage and damage reduction up high enough because of Mastery, you could take this and you wouldn't suffer any debuff. You would just get the 200%, increased duration. Anger Management. Every 10 rage that you spend reduces the remaining cooldown of Arms Recklessness and Protection Last Stand and Shield Wall by 1 second. I'm imagining that would be Arms and Fury. It would be Recklessness, unless... That's right. Fury doesn't get Anger Management. Opportunity Strikes. Your melee abilities have up to 60% chance based on target's missing health to trigger an extra attack that deals 200% physical damage. I want to know if the chance is going to be higher or lower with higher or lower health. Is the chance going to go up when they have lower health, or is it going to reduce? That's what I want to know. That will completely make or break this talent, I think. And then finally, Ravager again with a 1 minute cooldown. Throw a whirling weapon at the target location that inflicts 61.5% of attack power damage to enemies within 6 yards every 1 second and lasts 10 seconds. And if you take it as protection, it also increases your chance to parry by 30% for 11 seconds. So, As of right now, anger management or opportunity strikes are for sure the go-to abilities in that last tier. I really want to try out heroic strike. I really do. I want to see how much I can buff up my mortal strike on, and how much damage I can pump in a Colossus Smash window. But all in all, some interesting proposed changes for Arms Warriors. A little bit staying the same. There's some decent changes, a lot more than I thought they were going to be. What we're really waiting on now is just to see what our artifact weapon looks like, and then actually seeing gameplay. Are we going to be clunky or smooth? Hopefully we'll get some smoother gameplay, that's for sure, because right now we do a decent amount of damage, but we just don't feel very fluid or very well thought out. So I'm having my fingers crossed and hoping for the best on that one. But done with the talent tree, so let's go ahead and move on to the PvP talents. So I know we went over these in a previous video, but there's been a little bit of some changes to some of these, and I figure since we're going over Arms Warrior talents and abilities, might as well just look at the PvP tree as well to get it all in one concise video. Gladiator's Medallion, Adaptation, Relentless. If you've watched my previous videos, you know my thoughts on that, but just in case you haven't, I'll quickly recap. Definitely feeling Relentless for all my DPS classes, and any healers I play or see, I could see taking the Medallion. Though it is nice to see that everybody is getting access to the Medallion as well. Nice answer to saving it for a trinket. Everyone gets a PvP trinket if you want it. But that 25% reduction to crowd control effects is reduced by 25% is quite nice. So we'll see. Hardiness, while above 80% health, you take 20% less damage. Mind Quickness increases haste by 15%, which again is nice for Arms Warriors. Suddenly now, depending on how much haste we're stacking. And then Sparring, physical melee attacks have a 20% chance to be blunted, dealing 50% reduced damage. The thing about being a warrior already, I can look at these and I can see where I would want each of these to be different depending on what comp I'm fighting in an arena. If I'm going up against a heavy melee cleave, obviously Sparring is going to be my choice. Going up, maybe even playing turbo, or like playing with a turbo cleave. I can see Mind Quickness being a desirable one if I got enough haste there to make turbo cleave even faster. And then Hardiness, I could see just if I'm fighting against something like a turbo cleave or a thug cleave or something that just does a lot of front loaded, damage just consistently. Hardiness might be a decent one to take. But so just looking at where each of those would stand is an interesting thing. And I'm kind of proud of myself, I'm not going to lie, for being able to pick up on some of that. Because sometimes this stuff goes way over my head, I'm not going to lie. I'm still learning a lot of this as I'm going as well. I probably shouldn't admit to that, but we're being honest here, so there it is. Death Row, you can now execute targets at or below 25% health. Nice, so extra 5% window there, which won't matter since execute hits like a truck. Blood Hunt, while within 10 yards of enemies at execute range, your movement speed is increased by 15% and all snares are suppressed for 5 seconds. Nice. That alone is kind of nice because I feel like so often we have to use our heroic leap to get on top of targets to land that execute. Don't get me wrong, it's satisfying to jump on top of someone and just lop their head off. But having that increase to movement speed might be nice, and it might help close in that window a little bit since warriors are some of the easiest buggers to kite. And then Death Sentence. Execute now has a 15-yard range, causing you to charge the target when used. That one, out of all of them, sounds the most appealing to me. But again, none of them sound bad. That's the nice thing. Like, I'm actually looking at all three of these talents and I'm thinking, I don't know what would actually be better. But having the charge attached to execute is nice because then I wouldn't have to waste my charge cooldown. That is a cool concept to me. Rage Machine, attacks against you generate 5 rage. That alone sounds promising and nice depending on what Arms Warrior rage generation looks like. Tenderizer, auto attacks against targets above 80% health generate 5 rage. And then Ready for Battle, rage gain from charge is increased by 15. Ready for Battle or Rage Machine are definitely the two that I would look at and think those would be the best options. I could see how playing with a WLS comp would be better to take Rage Machine because you're wanting the game to last a little bit longer, so you're going to play a little more reserve, so taking damage is inevitable, so generating rage from taking that damage might not be a bad thing. And then if you're playing something like Turbo Cleave, which you want the game to be over quicker, you're trying to make quick matches. Same with KFC, maybe Ready for Battle would be better, though maybe it would be the other way around too. I don't know. I feel like so often as the warrior I get sat on so much, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because I'm the meat shield, so it kind of works out that way, and nobody else is taking damage. But at the same time, yeah, so I don't know. I mean, generating rage from that wouldn't be a bad idea either. But Rage Machine or Ready for Battle for sure are my go-to ones on that talent tree. Intercept is an 8 to 25 yard range in an instant, 20-second recharge, 1 charge. Run at high speed towards an ally or enemy. When targeting an enemy, Intercept will stun, root them for 1.5 seconds if you have Warbringer. Interesting. So it's interesting that... Oh, but it does replace charge. That's the big deal right there. I knew that. I was like, I'm missing something. So it's going to generate 20 rage. It replaces charge. But it's also going to have the potential to stun rather than just snare. So that's an interesting thought right there. Especially because Intercept is already a baseline ability. Now it's becoming a different functioning talent. So there's that. Pain Train. Charge resets the cooldown of your Colossus Smash. Okay. That's not bad, actually. Stuff like that is cool because, again, that's a force or a tangible control that you have over your burst or your damage. Because you're going to have a charge every 20 seconds, 12 seconds, depending on your talents, I believe. So being able to force a guaranteed Colossus Smash out of that is not a bad thing. And I would be okay with that because it's not RNG. It doesn't say it has a chance to. It just says charge resets the cooldown of your Colossus Smash. So that's kind of nifty. And then Booming Voice, your Recklessness now also affects all nearby allies within 10 yards. Oh, dang. Twos with an Enhancement Shaman just got real with that. The Enhancement Shaman takes Shamanism, which gives them the ability to use their Heroism or Bloodlust on them and an ally. And it has an insanely reduced cooldown and doesn't have Sated or Exhaustion attached to it. You pop that with your cooldowns, plus the warrior cooldowns. That's a whole lot of damage coming at you at one time. Pain Train or Booming Voice I think would be my go-to there for sure. Wrecking Crew Colossus Smash effect now also is applied to all nearby allies, or enemies, I'm sorry, within 8 yards of the target. That is a nifty and interesting mechanic. I don't know how effective that would be unless you're like taking Blade Storm. Unless the damage debuff from Colossus Smash just means they take more damage from everything, not just your attacks, then I guess that would be cool for big pulls like that, or big cleave fights. Just everybody has Colossus Smash, so everybody's taking a crap ton of damage. I can see it, actually. I can see that being viable. Echo Slam. Colossus Smash deals an additional 10% of the target's total health in damage 2.5 seconds later. Damage done ignores all armor. That's kind of cool. So whatever it does, it deals an additional 10% of that of the target's... Okay, wait. Colossus Smash deals an additional 10%. Oh, I see how it is. I'm reading it properly now. So after you land your Colossus Smash, 2.5 seconds later, it's going to do 10% of the target's total health and damage. Interesting. And then ignores all armor. So depending on what their health is, that could be a massive hit. Plus, okay, that's interesting. The tool or the icon trips me out though because I feel like that's an inaccurate icon. It's weirding me out. Sharpened Blade, and this one has me extremely curious. It's an instant on a 45-second cooldown, and when activated, your next Mortal Strike will deal 50% increased damage and reduce healing taken by 70% for 4 seconds. Talk about setting up some kills, like some good CC, landing a good, Colossus Smash with a Mortal Strike with Sharpened Blade attack to it. Like, that's intense. And there's no, cooldown on it necessarily. It's that just your next Mortal Strike. So you can pop this and prep and get ready for that Mortal Strike hit. I mean, that's going to be a 400% Colossus or Mortal Strike hit into Colossus Smash, which you're going to do a ton of damage. Not counting or taking into account the fact that you might have cooldowns up or not. So between that, the ability that lets you have 2 charges of Mortal Strike. Jeez. Pain Train, because I feel like I'm already looking at this and seeing what I would want to use for huge damage builds. Getting a little bit better direction on which place and which direction they're going to be taking Arms Warriors. I think I still am not able to make a concise and conclusive decision on whether or not I like the direction they're taking them without seeing the artifact traits. I think that's the biggest piece of the puzzle that we're missing. The talents and the abilities look cool that we have right now, not taking into account what potential new abilities we're going to get from leveling up, what level 110 tier we're going to have in our talent trees, and then of course what we have in our artifact weapons. Though, again, as I said before, too, that's just assuming we're going to get new talents in our 110 bracket. We might not, since we're getting a whole artifact weapons worth of abilities and traits, so that's yet to be seen. I hope we do get those, because that'd be nice to have extra talents on top of the artifact tree plus new abilities that we get from leveling up. Be kind of cool. It's nice to see that they're still dealing with the ability bloat, but they're, instead of just cutting stuff all together, they're shifting it, moving it around where it might have a better place. giving us more options or making us have to choose between some of our favorite abilities depending on what situation we find ourselves in. That's kind of cool. So so far with these new talent trees that we're looking at, the PvP trees, the abilities, I'm excited to check out Warriors, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing Warriors in Legion as of right now. And this definitely puts me at a little more ease, you know, and kind of eases my mind a little bit, because you're always wondering and you're a little nervous, like, what are they going to do to my class? What are they going to do to my class? Oh my gosh, is my class going to be viable? And then the panic sets in. But so far, Arms is looking good. We'll have to go over Fury next time and see how that looks, but for now, I'm looking forward to trying out Arms and getting my hands on it and just seeing what it feels like. I'm hoping that it stays pretty fluid and intuitive and doesn't turn into a clunky, strange, odd mess. Learning curves aside. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this video. So as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit that share button if you can think that you have some friends in your life or people that you know or groups that you're a part of that would enjoy it or benefit from this as well. Don't forget to let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you play a warrior, what your thoughts are on the changes. I'd love to discuss them with you. Don't forget to follow me on all the different social media platforms we got going on here. You can find me on Facebook, where I post the videos that I'm posting here on YouTube every day, so you can know where they're at and have to find them there, not having to search and come back to YouTube and check to see if anything's up. You'll know right away when I have something new up. You can follow me on Twitter, where I tweet things randomly throughout the day, and I'm usually pretty good about getting back to people if they tweet at me there, if you guys are interested in that. And of course, you can find my Instagram. You can find that on the banner up top there above the channel. That is my personal Instagram, so you'll see lots of pictures of just other things that I do with my life rather than just gaming. But you know, it's there if you guys are interested in that. Follow at your own discretion. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.